Very good. Okay, so it's always a good idea because we never know how many people are here for the first time to give a brief technical overview for Zoom and in-person attendees. So those of you on Zoom, please stay muted unless you're speaking. Sign on with your phone or your computer, but not both. And if someone would please put up the link for the Democratic Rules of Order in the chat, that would be very helpful. The people here, there's some copies of the Democratic Rules of Order on the table over there. When you wish to speak, it's best to raise your hand using the little raise hand icon that Zoom provides. And that's because Zoom puts people in the order in which they raise their hands. So that makes it really, really easy for me to know who to call on next. For people who are calling in on a telephone, you'll need to unmute yourselves with *6 and let us know that you wish to speak. Okay. So it's also important to know that we don't have time to check the chat. If you do your comments in chat, we won't be seeing them. So you'll need to speak up into the meeting. And so then the folks who are here in the Land Trust building, the use of microphones is very important. Now, our microphones here they're not hooked up so that it makes it loud in the room. These microphones are so that the people on Zoom can hear us. So you may think, well, everybody can hear me. So that's why the microphones are important, and we have plenty of microphones to share with people. And it's important to hold it up close to your mouth, speak clearly and slowly, and that will help a lot. And also, if we do have votes tonight, we probably will at some point, only people who are members can vote in our meetings. And we use good faith voting so that we trust that you know you're a member and you members will vote. And if you're not sure if you're a member, we have the printed list of voting members if anyone wants to see it. If you're on this list, you're a voting member. And if you're not a member and you'd like to be, it's easy. You just have to live here, full or part-time, have a Vashon-Maury mailing address, and be 18 years of age or older. And you can sign up on our website. Okay. All right, so I'm calling the meeting to order. I'd like to acknowledge the board members present. We have Ann Thorne is our board member. We have Ben Carr, who's a board member. Deborah Gusson is our vice president and a board member. I'm Diane Emerson, I'm the president. We have Elena Camarillo and Dr. Stephen Nurse is, I believe, on Zoom. Not quite yet. And Tammy Dye, our treasurer, is on Zoom tonight.
Good evening.
Thanks, Tammy. Okay. Now, next, we have, I want to just give a reminder to everybody because sometimes we get some pretty heated discussions going at community council meetings. And I'd like to remind everybody that the council prides itself on striving to conduct its business in a professional, respectful, and courteous manner. Common courtesy and respect for fellow islanders and guests are expected. Rudeness, personal criticism, and ridicule, including the chat contributions, are not acceptable, nor will they be tolerated. So next we have the land acknowledgement, and Jessica Anakar was going to read it, but she is ill this evening, and so I was wondering if someone else might read it. I have it.
Please join me in acknowledging the Coast Salish people. The land we occupy today is their ancestral land. For thousands of years, they lived on it, stewarding its resources with care and wisdom. Today, with gratitude, we acknowledge them and their elders, past, present, and emerging, and recognize that this land remains a vital part of their cultural sovereignty.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, next on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the last meeting from September 19th. These have been sent out to everybody on the mailing list for review. And so I'm asking to see if there are any corrections to be made in our September 19th minutes. Not seeing any, I will mark those as approved and we'll move on. So tonight we have some guests with us. We have Major Kobe Hamill, and he has a couple of his staff people with him.
Hello, everybody. I hope online can see me. I'll move a little, maybe I can move a little closer this direction. There we are. There I am. Okay. Hello, everyone. Again, my name's Kobe Hamill. I'm a major with the King County Sheriff's Office. I happen to be the precinct commander that serves supervises the deputies who work White Center, Vashon Island, and Skyway districts that we have at our precinct. So we're the Southwest Precinct. I know I came out probably in February and saw some of you when I first came out to the Southwest Precinct. So we have a new group of commanders that have joined the precinct in that time. So some of our folks have left. I've added a sergeant, and then I have a new captain. Eric Muller moved on to the city of Burien. He was our operations captain. So our new operations captain is Chris Shagusky. He came out here tonight to see everybody. And I picked up an administrative sergeant in a short amount of time that I've been at the precinct and was able to add that. And Teresa Shrimpshire back there in the corner is our new administrative sergeant. She is also going to be the liaison for Vashon Island. So if there's concerns or issues or people are having problems they're feeling aren't getting resolved, she's going to be the person that island residents can go to with their concerns and address those. And I think she's probably going to leave a business card or two here tonight. And then I know Diane has all of our information. So if anybody feels like they need to speak to me, obviously, please feel free to reach out to me via email. Captain Shagusky as well. Diane also has his information, so he will make himself readily available to speak with you. And I do try to come out. I tried to come out once a month to just make myself visible here so you guys could see me and grab me if you had a concern, but unfortunately my schedule, as you can imagine, with the areas that I supervise gets extremely busy. So I pop out when I can. So I'm glad I was able to make it out tonight. Things have slowed down just a pinch. It's been a long day for us, but we still like to come out and visit when we can and show our face and let you know that we are still here and we're aware that you guys are here and we want to be good partners and be responsible to you as residents out here. So I'm not sure if anybody has any questions, burning questions or desires they want to throw in real quick before we get out of here, but I just wanted to show up and let you know that we were here and we still have our deputies across the street. So if anybody's got any questions real quick, I'll take them from you. Otherwise, I will let you get on with your meeting. All right, I think so. I made it off easy. Sergeant Shrimpshire has left her business card back there she only has a couple with her, but she left them. If maybe take a picture of it if you'd like. You can take a snapshot of it and be able to reach out to her, but she is going to be your direct liaison out here on the island. Please, this is not for emergencies. That again, her contact information is not for emergencies. If you have an emergency, dial 911. We have 2 deputies out here 24 hours a day, and we will be here for you. But don't call Teresa unless if it's an emergency, please, because she works day shift. So, oh, was there a question? Go ahead, ma'am. Sorry, I didn't see your hand. I apologize, Victoria. You're gonna have to unmute if you're talking, Victoria.
Oh, shoot. How do I unmute?
Elsewhere.
Muted? Am I unmuted?
Yeah, I can hear you, Victoria. Go ahead.
Okay, I have a problem in that I can barely hear for some reason this meeting tonight. But I don't know where to interject this, but I believe it's a point of order about the voting process. There's some confusion in the community, and I wish that to understand how it works with the nominating committee. I understand there's a nominating committee, and that if people wanted to make a presentation, they would have to have been approved put in their application by the 13th and been approved by the committee. I understand that part, but what's the second part where people who didn't do that, and then submit their application by this coming Sunday, or whatever the deadline is, the 20th, I think. Are those people automatically on the ballot, or are they only
We'll
on
cover
the
that
ballot?
on the agenda. Victoria, we'll be covering that in the meeting a little bit later, okay? When we talk about the nominating committee and the elections, okay? We'll cover that later. Thank you. So we're on an introduction of guests, and we also have with us this evening Chris Lampkin, who's Deputy Chief of Staff for Teresa Mosqueda, is here, I believe. Chris, there he is.
Good
Thank
evening.
you so much. Thank you, Chris, for being here. It's really important that you are, and we're very grateful. Okay, I don't have anything down for community happenings or island celebrations. I'm wondering if anyone here has something they'd like to contribute for that. Okay. See if this helps, if you can hear me better. Really close, yeah. Okay, so now we have open discussion. What's on your mind? What issues do you want us to cover? And we have a couple of people who've asked in advance for some time during this session, and one of them is Stephen Richmond. And Stephen, oh, here you are. Okay. So give Stephen a microphone, and there we go. People can see you. Come on up, Stephen, and you can just sit in that chair or just stand if you wish, but it's hard because
My name is Steve Richmond. I've been conducting forest restoration for the last 20 years throughout King County. I'm relatively new here to Vashon. I'm married into the community. And I've come out here and I'm very concerned and alarmed at the density of invasive species. And it's a concern for many islanders, and the consensus in the King County professional community is that herbicide is necessary to efficiently battle, cost efficiently and soil efficiently, to actually battle the spread of invasives. There are, on the other end, a lot of concerns about herbicide on island. So I would like to make a motion that this council actually supports a community forum on noxious weed control with and without herbicides. By inviting appropriate King County parks, and the forum would be held in early 2025 at all points.
so can I need to have it reread exactly as the wording
Please do.
we
Thank
want.
you.
Yeah.
No, that's great.
To
Thank
make
you.
for the record.
Okay.
So I'm going to read it first and then see if it will be seconded. Okay. So can I just read it the way it's
Yeah,
here?
please
Okay.
do. Yeah, I'm new at this.
It's okay. Because the control of invasive species and the use of herbicides are both important issues to islanders, I move that the Vashon-Maury Community Council ask King County to support a community forum on noxious weed control with and without herbicides by sending appropriate King County staff to the forum to be held in early 2025. So that's Steve's motion, and I was wondering if there would be a second for this. Are you seconding it? Okay, so his motion has been made and seconded. And when this happens, we can open it up for discussion now. If people have any questions about this idea and so forth. So, yes.
Yeah, Bill Noller, I support this motion. You mentioned asking experts from King County. I would suggest we also consider if there are experts at University of Washington or Vashon Nature Center that could be involved to broaden the perspective.
Good idea. I would support that, and I'll reach out to some of those folks, and that is in the works.
So I was wondering if, so Victoria, would you like to ask a question or comment about the motion?
No, I'm sorry if my hand was up. I didn't mean it to be. I'll try to get it down.
Oh, that's okay.
Sorry.
So,
My
okay, very
apologies.
good. No worries. Joanne, would you like to comment on the motion? You'll need to unmute yourself.
I think I fixed my mic. Can you hear me?
We sure can.
Okay, great. Yeah, this is an important topic. There's a lot of issues around this. I think, but I'm not positive, in the next loop for November, there's going to be an article entitled Managing Mother Nature. And the issue of invasives is going to be a small part of that article. So I'd encourage people to read it.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And there's another hand up.
I'm Mike Dawson. Steve, I was just wondering if you could clarify what organ going to lead this this forum.
I believe the community council will be leading it, but it will be a cooperative effort with King County. And in fact, I will be on probably the panel speaking as a contractor practitioner and providing my point of view and perspective. So it will be fairly broad, and I think it will be brief 5-minute statements and then a question and answer period. So we're working on inviting the appropriate folks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, so this is a motion that's on the floor, and the way we do this is the motion gets made at
Did
one
you hear the
meeting.
motion? What was it?
Yes, I read the motion, and then it will be voted on at the next meeting. So it would be voted on at the November meeting. We'll have another opportunity to discuss it at the November meeting before we vote on it. Very good. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Okay, and the next one who has asked for some time well in advance was Joanne Herbert. Joanne, would you like to take some time here on open discussion?
Yeah, I just have to, I don't know, I'm not, wait a minute, I have to find, okay. So I wanted to read an email that I sent today to the person, Aaron, who works with Teresa Mosqueda in the Seattle City Council. And I start out by greeting her and telling her that I heard from Diane Emerson say that Mosqueda had in mind to put limits on Airbnbs on Vashon. So I asked the question, how can we step this up? If you've lived here, oh, by the way, so I'm Joanne Herbert. I'm a registered nurse. I've lived here 30 years. I'm now retired. If you've lived here and heard the many ongoing stories of workers, longtime islanders, many who were raised here, struggling to be able to find affordable housing, you would likely feel in your gut that we're in dire straits. It's tragic and it's scary that this ball keeps rolling faster and faster with the effects on the whole community growing. We have people who clean homes for a living here, who now will only work for owners of Airbnbs because they can charge the largest rates. And I was told this by another person who cleans, and I am a homeowner here. What kind of place is Vashon for the future, where all the workers must live off island, ride the expensive and unreliable ferries? We may permanently lose many of these workers. Those who are not rich but have a home here purchased long ago have to also be at the mercy of what the wealthiest newer residents have built for themselves. I heard that there are 1,600 Airbnbs on Vashon. Do you know the number? Please tell me what ideas you're working on to resolve this for the working people and for all residents of Vashon. A lottery? How to decide the number allowed? How to monitor compliance? What steps can Vashon Town Council be taking to move this forward in a productive way? Those owners of Airbnbs with unlimited funds seeking not to lose this source of income will likely seek to kill this effort. How can we show them they will meet a dead end in their attempt? Seattle City Council passed an amendment calling for a long-term ceasefire in Israel and Palestine. This was surprising to me. I'm not against it, but how about first some important actions here in the Seattle area for access to fair housing and for an ability for workers to carry on a reasonable life in the Seattle area. I look forward to hearing from you and reporting back to the Vashon Town Council and to the workers that I know. Thank you. Joanne Herbert, blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Thanks very much, Joanne. It's affordable housing, as we know, is a very, very critical issue, and the loss of rentals to Airbnbs is being looked at by King County, county-wide, not just on Vashon. And so now we still have a little bit more time here on open discussion. Is there anything else anyone would like to mention? Okay, who had their hand up first over here?
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, I'm Jeff Schnells, and I got a hold of some King County people in the last few weeks, and I was inquiring about how much money gets spent on our road maintenance here on Vashon, and I wanted to compare that to how much money gets spent on the water taxi. And I found out that our road crews here on Vashon have a budget of 1.5 million. And this water taxi was subsidized to the tune of just over $2 million in 2023. And anyway, I consider this road maintenance budget at 1.5 million. I think that's puny. And, you know, I have here a brochure that Joe McDermott sent out, you know, a couple of years ago now. And he outlines over $400 million in special interest spending in here, all kinds of goodies for special interests. But I've been trying for years to get, you know, our road crews properly funded so we can chip seal our roads again. And, you know, I was a little bit dumbfounded to find out that they only get 1.5 million. And then, of course, this water taxi gets, as of 2023, that was $2 million to subsidize that boat. And I want to also remind people on the island that there's fewer than 5% of the population here uses this water taxi. The other 95% of us don't. And if you're concerned about affordability here on Vashon, just remember, if you put a special ferry boat from Vashon Island straight into downtown Seattle, you're going to get some real high income people come over here and they'll see that, oh, I can live on and well, you know, the situation there. But it's somewhat ironic that King County will subsidize this water taxi to the tune of $2 million. And then they'll spend countless millions more building dormitories for people that get priced out of their homes. Okay. One thing I didn't find out is how much money got spent on the dormitories down by 188th Street. If somebody knows, you might share that.
Sorry, you need to
Thank
move
you.
on, sorry. Okay, one more comment and then we'll have to move on.
Strategic climate action plan, is this the time to talk about that?
That's on the agenda later.
It's okay, that's cool.
Yes. Yes, Mike. Need to double check. I'm pretty
So
sure.
actually, this is a query. This is Mike Dawson again. On Cemetery Road on the east end, between 87th Avenue and Beale Road. In the last couple of weeks, there have been a whole bunch of large trees removed. And I've been trying to find out exactly what's going on. I talked to workers on the site, and they told me that this was because the trees, and I believe this is correct, are right on top of the water main. And so I went to talk to the folks at Water District 19 to try to confirm that, and found out, no, that's not true at all. They don't have anything to do with it, but they're being asked to move the fire hydrant there because there will be a sidewalk built there in association with the school, which for somebody who lives right around the corner on 87th makes no sense whatsoever. So I was just wondering if anyone here understood what the actual purpose of all the tree removal was.
So Mike is asking if there's anyone who knows about all that tree removal and why it's actually happening. Steve, are he has a question.
It's worth a shot.
It's worth a shot. Yes, you just never know who might know something on this island and who comes to the meeting. Okay. Steve, if you have a very, very quick question as part of the meeting, go for it, but it's got to be real quick. Sorry.
Thank you. Just 30 seconds to let everybody know that the next Vashon Fix-It Cafe is coming up on the 2nd of November, Saturday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Eagles. Register to get your items fixed at vashonfixit.com. We look forward to seeing you all there again.
Thank you very much, Steve. That's one of my favorite things on the whole island. Okay, so now we're going to move on and we're going to talk about the board. And before we get into discussing board candidates for our election that we're coming up, I just wanted to have an announcement, and it's a very unfortunate and sad announcement, and that is that one of our board members has resigned. Jamila Stigall is our secretary, and she resigned from the community council recently. And I'd like to read what she would like to share with everybody. She says, "I'm leaving to focus on my family and other community efforts. I intend to stay a council member, but I'm also going back to school, so I have to put my energy into other things. Deuces." So Jamila, despite being a single mom with three children, put in many hours on behalf of our community through the council. First on the Equity, Social Justice, and Inclusion Committee. Then she joined the board and took on the responsibility of being the secretary, which is a big job when you have 2 important meetings every single month. We will miss her presence on the board and the perspective she brought from her life experience. Thank you very much, Mila. So now we are on to talking about our board elections. So every 2 years, the community council elects the whole board again. And some board members stay on and continue on with the information and the experience. And then there's new board members that come on. So this is the year for board elections. And some of us are not continuing on, and I'm one of them. So I've been doing this for 5 years, helping the community council, and it's time for me to go on to other things and play with plants and things. So, so the terms are 2-year terms, and they begin December 1st, and we have we're at the point of collecting nominations for the board, and we currently have 4 people who have submitted their self-nomination forms. And I would like to have you have the folks who've done that introduce themselves so that we can ask them some questions. And after that, I will address the concept of nominations from the floor and nominations that still might come in before the election starts next week. So first of all, let's go ahead and introduce everybody. Who'd like to begin introducing yourself? So we could start with the people who are continuing to run. Anne, would you mind? Oh, if you want, Stephen has his hand up, so we could go with him first. Okay, Dr. Stephen Nurse, please share with us a little bit about yourself, and people will be able to ask you questions.
Let's see, I have been on the island for 40 years. Most of my kids were raised here. Very important that I give back to this community. And I really care about it. One of the things Diane and I were talking about was literally 2 years ago, or over 2 years ago, I contacted King County Building and Land Management and had a guy come out here and walked around the entire town with me. And I talked about curb cuts. I'm very concerned, since I use a wheelchair, very concerned about access. And I just found out in this new strategic plan that they've included a lot of the improvements to the sidewalks. So, and there were a lot of them, the ones that we specifically had mentioned, by Chase Bank, by the post office, along Bank Road on the across between Island Lumber and Thriftway, in that place. So I was real pleased with that, but that's kind of my concern. I think the council really needs to be an educator and present all sides of issues. That's really important to me. I thought that one of the things that even came up tonight about the herbicides is really a critical issue. Lots of ivy out there that probably is pretty invasive and things like that. So that's why I like to be on the council, is to get people educated. So that's it. That's me.
Thank you very much. Anyone have some questions for Dr. Nurse? Okay. All right, very good. And next we also have, well, Anne, would you mind now sharing yourself, a little bit of information about yourself?
Okay, hello. Is this mic work? Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Ann Thorne. I have lived on the island 29 years with my family, and both my kids are back on the island, so I like that. I have had a career in resuscitation, developing defibrillators. I retired about a year ago and have been enjoying being retired and doing whatever I want. But now also, as Steve mentioned, want to give back to the community. I chose two things. I chose to be on the council, and I'm also tutoring at Student Link. And started both of them at about the same time, but so far both have been rewarding, and I'm here to serve the community and keep good forums and discussions going, and hear everybody equally.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Anyone have any questions for Anne? Someone's phone is on. I don't know whose phone is on or who's not muted. Oh, okay. Oh, it's in here. Thank you very much, Anne. We're delighted to have that you're going to continue, that you want to continue on the board. And you too, Dr. Nurse. It's fabulous to have folks with some experience on the board to continue things on. Jessica Anakar, who is our corresponding secretary, is also has put her hat in to continue for another 2 years. She's not here with us this evening because she's ill, but there's information on her, and I can share some information. Her family has been on the island, I think 5 generations, and her family has always been very, very community minded and has done many things over the years. And she's very, very dedicated to the community, even though that she's a single mom with 3 kids and working full-time. She's hangs in there and wants to be on the community council. So she finds the time to do it. And I'm very, very grateful. And we have someone who hasn't been on the board yet who's submitted her nomination, and it's Susan Carper.
Hi, I'm Susan Carper, and I am about a 3-year resident of Vashon. I came here originally to work at Little Bird Nursery, and due to unforeseen circumstances, I now work full-time at Thriftway, which you probably see me there, or maybe you don't. I decided that now would be a time where things had come together in my life where I felt like I could put more effort into my community because they've done so much sharing with me over the last 3 years. And I would love to be here to be a voice of the single parents and the people struggling to stay here, because I recently just evolved from about it was 6 to 9 months worry that the island was going to pop me off and I was going to have to start a new career and move my kids and do all those things. And Island Magic worked, and we now have a cozy little place here. But that's something that I would love to advocate for, is housing and working at Thriftway. I work with a lot of people who are in the same boat. So that's really what I love and am passionate about the most, but I also have a lot of other things that I care about in our community, and it's really important that everyone's voice is heard, and I would love to be here to be a part of that.
Thank you very much, Susan. Does anyone have any questions for Susan? Would like to ask more about her, or what's the best deals at Thriftway these days?
That depends.
Okay, thank you so much. So now we we can take nominations from the floor. That if you have not gotten your self-nomination form in, we can take nominations from the floor, and we also have time. We can take a few more nominations. The nominating committee is still accepting nominations until I think it's Sunday. Date is, I don't have that here. 3 days. Yeah, 3 days from now. Yes, so there's chance to get in, but then after that, everything will be turned over to the elections committee, and the election will start. You could still, if you're interested, there will be space. There will be space on the board if you are interested in being part of this board, because we have space. The board is full, the board is 12 people on it. And the reason that we have a 12-person board is to split the work up, because we're all volunteers. This is a lot of work to do this job for running the community council, and we need many hands to the work. So it's not too much for anyone. Have a nomination form or nominate yourself from the floor. Please speak up. We need you.
I'm not, I know Victoria had a question about the process, and so I don't know if that got answered with what you just said, or if she still has a question.
Yeah, if someone, the nominating committee does evaluate the applications. So anyone who who submits their application now before the applications end will be evaluated by the nominating committee. And the nominating committee is here to just make sure that the people who want to be on the board are a good fit for the community council and the board. And that's a very important job for this committee, which is a committee of the board. And Victoria, yes, please unmute yourself. Yeah, Victoria, oh, here, she's unmuted herself. Okay.
Am I unmuted now? Oh, thank you.
You are
Hope.
now.
I'm not doing very well tonight. I've been ill, so sorry for my clumsiness on this format. So the nominating committee then decides who is brought to an election, that no one can be on the ballot who isn't approved by the nominating committee. Is that correct?
If there is someone who the nominating committee has said that they don't, it's not a good fit, the members can override that decision.
So they would have to, that person would what, have to make a motion to be added to the ballot, and then it would be
Yes.
voted on whether they would get on the ballot, and then they
That's
would be
correct.
voted on as a candidate?
That's correct.
Boy, that seems like an embarrassing thing for someone to have to go through. You know, to have to have been disapproved and then asked to be considered for whether they could even get on the ballot and then be voted on and then to be voted on. Boy, I don't know if that's really going to encourage that many people to apply. But I'm wondering, Diane, where's the authority for that? Where is that in the bylaws or the rules? I was looking for it today and I just couldn't find it.
Well, our bylaws and rules don't cover everything. And so when they don't cover everything, we need to decide how we're going to do it. And the nominating committee, using the guidance from the Democratic Rules of Order, which basically says that members rule. And so that's how this decision came to be.
So I understand the Democratic Rules of Order saying that members rule, but that's not the same as saying that the board rules or that the nominating committee rules. So where did the board and the nominating committee get the authority without going to the members to have every single person who wants to be on the ballot vetted and approved or disapproved by a nominating committee? If that didn't come from the members and it's not in the rules of the bylaws, where did it come from?
It's standard for nominating committees for nonprofits to choose who gets on the board. That's what nominating committees do.
Right, but I'm asking again, where did the authority for that? I understand that is a procedure and some groups have that, but where did the authority for this nominating committee come from if it's, you know, the structure of our organization is it's at the will of the people, it's to come from the members. Did the members ever vote on that? Were they ever apprised of that? I just don't really understand how this came up.
Well, the members don't vote on absolutely all of the different procedures that we follow in running this organization, and this is a quite a standard way of doing things. And we also were advised by Jim Deers, who is a global expert in community, to be very, very careful who we allow on our board, because he has seen that getting people who are a bad fit on a board can destroy an organization.
Yes, that point is well taken. So I do understand why you as an outgoing board want to, you know, have control over the income, who is on the incoming board. That point is definitely well taken. Thank you, Diane.
You're very welcome. Okay, so.
RCW 24.03A.500 says the qualifications to be a director, run for a director, are simply that you be a member of the organization unless the bylaws prescribe otherwise. The bylaws of this organization simply say you need to be over the age of 18 and a member. Oh, the RCW 24.03A.500 says one other thing. You have to be an individual, a natural person, not an organization or whatever. So back to what Victoria, who is an attorney, was asking, where is this authority? You don't have that authority.
So what would you like to do? What are you proposing?
I'm proposing that anybody who wants to run be on the ballot and not be vetted or approved by a self-selected nominating committee, which I understand is you, Jessica Anakar, Ann Thorne, and I forget who the fourth person is.
It's not, no, that's not them. So,
What's the subsection again you're quoting?
I think what you're doing is immoral and
What's
unethical
the
and illegal,
RCW
no,
again?
and
please
is
be
subjecting
civic.
you potentially
Please
to
be civic
a
in this-
lawsuit.
Please be civic in this.
I'm being
in this
civic,
meeting.
civil.
What's the RCW again?
RCW 24.03A, that's the Nonprofit Corporation Act, .500. Qualification of directors is that you be an individual and a member of the organization. Actually, it says you don't even need to be a member. I think it's just you have to be an individual. your
Subject to our
bylaws say you have to be a
bylaws.
member and over the age of 18.
Right, that doesn't say.
So the issue is, what if you've allowed 4 people to make campaign statements tonight, which is fine. If people submit their self-nomination forms between now and the drop dead date of this Sunday at noon, I think it is, and this self-appointed nominating committee, there's also nothing in the bylaws about a nominating committee. There is for an election committee, but not a nominating committee. But anyway, if they get rejected by noon by this self-appointed nominating committee, then what happens? Have they passed the deadline to then still be nominated by someone else or self-nominated? This is very confusing. And I think unethical and illegal. I don't see where you have the authority to do what you're doing.
Armin, you might want to read RCW
quite hear you, Ben.
2403A 490.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Ben.
2403A 490, subsection 2, all corporate powers shall be exercised by or under the authority of the board of directors. And the activities and affairs of the corporation shall be managed by or under the direction or subject to the oversight of the board of directors, subject only to any powers expressly reserved for the corporation's membership or other persons in the bylaws or articles. So unless there's something that takes the power away from the board has the power to create a nominating committee.
And the nominating committee is mentioned in our standing rules or
Okay,
bylaws.
so .500 says the only qualifications are that you be an individual.
Right, that's
And your bylaws say the only qualifications are that you be over 18 and a member.
right.
That's pretty specific. So you're citing 490, which is a general kind of concept. And you know, and I know, because you're a lawyer and I know enough about the law to know this, that specific things override general things. So .500 is pretty specific, and the bylaws say you need to be a member and over the age of 18, and that's it.
I hear your argument. I don't, it's not up to me to agree or disagree. The board under 490 has the power to control these kind of corporate powers, so.
You're
So,
kind of mumbling, and I'm not
so I
hearing
would-
everything you're saying.
so as the chair,
But what happens
I-
if somebody puts their nomination in by noon on Sunday and this nominating committee rejects it? You've already indicated that they can still self-nominate, and then the electorate can elect to have them, or can vote to have them be on the ballot.
later,
But when would that election take place? Because I assume the election is going to would have taken place tonight for anybody who you may have rejected by now.
that anybody who the nominating committee determines is not qualified or would not be a good fit to be on the board between when the nominations end, has the opportunity anytime to come back and resubmit their self-nomination form to the new board to be considered by the new board. It's not the end of the world. They can just submit it to the new board when they're formed. And the new board can decide to accept them or not.
But what if they wanted to run for one of the 8 available elected positions now?
They can't.
You're denying them that opportunity
Yes,
is what
that's
I'm
right.
getting at. But do you agree you're denying them that opportunity?
Well, they have until Sunday.
Yes, but if they submit by Sunday and then the nominating committee rejects them, then have they passed the deadline for being able to be on the ballot
Yes.
to then self-nominate? Well, that's not fair. You're doing something I deem unethical. Now, you may disagree with that. You probably do disagree with that. I just wanted on the record that somebody is saying what you're doing is unethical. And you may get sued over it.
For how long have we been talking about the nomination? Weeks and weeks and weeks.
I can't hear
right?
you.
For a long time, we have had the open time to do nominations.
For a long time, you have.
For a, what I want to say that we have opened the time for nominations for a very long time. I don't remember. I wanted to ask you because
I don't think this
Yeah.
procedure has been used in the past. I mean, I've been watching these meetings for 4 years. Had no reason to raise these kind of objections or issues previously.
Can I have more
Okay,
tea?
well, we're going to move
We don't
on
need to
now.
belabor it anymore. I just want to get
Yes.
these things on the record.
It's on the record. All right, so we will move on. If it would be wonderful if more people would consider joining the board so that the board can start out with a goodly number of people to to get the work done that needs to be done. And it's time to move on. Did you have one quick question there, Mike Dawson? Wait.
How does the voting for board members occur?
We will be using the election buddy. And so the election will go out to all of the members rather than just the people who might attend our meeting in November, even though we don't have a full board. So there'll be, no, it's not going to be, no, it's not in a community meeting. We're gonna give people as many of our members an opportunity to vote on the board as possible by using election buddy. Okay, next we have a bylaws and standing rules update. And we have been working on the bylaws and standing rules, and I would like to have Kevin Jones. Kevin, you want to come up and talk about the back, where this is coming from and where we're at with this?
Hi, Kevin Jones. I've been involved with the Equity Committee that started about 2.5 years ago. It was actually a motion from the council. And so the discussion of some issues that came up a few years ago resulted in the creation of a committee. So we now have been looking at outreaching to members of the community to talk to them about equity, inclusion, and justice on the islands. And we've talked to about 40 people. I think I can't actually see it right now because it has that thing jumped in front of it. Right. Yeah, we can go and show that one. And so of the folks that we talked to, about 40 people, about a dozen of them are leaders of organizations on the island like Vashon Be Prepared, Dove, Youth and Family Services, Vashon Be Prepared. So it's not only people who have lived experience of their own on the islands, but also people who work in community across a lot of different parts of the island to help raise our awareness and understanding of whether they felt included in part of the islands and particularly the community council's work. So the motion is very simple: approve for incorporation the Vashon-Maury Community Council bylaw and standing rules revisions proposed by the Equity, Social Justice and Inclusion Committee and as approved by the V-MCC board. There was one of our recommendations that was not moved forward, but I think the board basically came to unanimous consent of the items that are being proposed for changes to the bylaws and standing rules. There were a few cases in the Equity Committee where we voted on items, but in general, most of the recommendations, which are again are a reflection of what we heard from people in the community, were arrived at by consensus. We also, when we heard things from the people in the community, we went back and checked in with them to say, this is what we heard. These are the kind of changes we're recommending. Does that fit with what you told us? And so we made some adjustments on that basis. So while I'm standing here talking, what you're hearing is the voices of a whole lot of islanders who looked at how this council is operating today and how it can be improved from their perspective. Okay? That's a good call. Is there a second, please? Thank you, Kathleen. Okay, so what I'd like to do is there's a few slides that will give you an overview. The changes to the bylaws and standing rules are very detailed word by word changes in documents. So those are going to be available. So we're not going to go through those word by word here. But I would like to go through and go to slide number 2. Unless Diane, you wanted to say something particular about the.
Oh, I'd like to mention that these have been available in the emails, and they're available online, and we'll be putting them on the website so that you can take a look at them that way as well.
Okay, in the standard format, what you saw there is a new text is underlined in red font, and proposed removals are strike through in red font. Okay, and we go to the PowerPoint slides. So, oh, okay, well, we had yeah.
Summary.
The slide right behind the motion statement is a summary of the recommendations. Okay, and there we are.
Right here.
That's perfect.
Okay.
So I'm not sure, Diane, how much time you'd like to devote to this. You can give me
Take a look. We have, the whole thing, we have until 8:20.
Okay, got it. So I'm not going to take that long. That's my goal, and except to answer questions. We saw some items are specific wording changes, like change help to support. We also want to, Diane talked about outreach to the island community through this liaison structure. Right now, the bylaws allow for board members to be liaisons. We feel it's important to expand that to people who are maybe the nominating committee, talk to somebody and they say, well, I can't really do the board thing, because of the meetings and what have you, my commitments already. But I could be a liaison to a community on the island because I know that community, I live in that community, I'm part of that community. And so building a network of people who are liaisons and outreaching to different parts of our island to understand how we all are doing is kind of what's behind that. We also want to make sure that each of the sectors that's defined currently is paired with a liaison. And currently, if you go out to the website, you'll see some sectors, I believe, don't currently have liaisons. So the goal is to make sure that each of these sectors that have been identified has some pathway to this council. We also want to make sure that the board hears a report from each sector at least twice a year. The current language would allow the board to hear a sector report from, say, I'll pick one out of there, the education sector, multiple times a year and never hear from any other sector. They would be in compliance with the current language if they were to do that. They don't want to do that, but right now we'd like to make sure that the sectors are heard from by the board. Let's see, we also want to clarify the role of the liaison. Some language we'd like to add are assuring that the sectors are aware of and are represented during council discussions and decisions that affect them. That doesn't mean they have to be in the room. The idea is that when some issue comes up before the council that would affect a part of the island, that liaison would work to connect with those folks and say, what do you think about this idea? And if you could make it to the meeting, that would be awesome. If you can't, at least let me know how you're thinking so I can be more aware and better represent the issues that these issues faces, right, with whoever this sector might be. We're talking like education, art, recreation, things like that. So we're going to actually see a slide. I think it's the next slide. Okay, so this is a slide you probably can't read. I don't know if you can make it full screen, but on the left column is the current sectors that you see in the existing, I think, standing rules. We asked people, which sector do you see yourself, what's your number 1, number 2, and number 3 sector? And so that's how we know we talk to people that are pretty well distributed across each of these sectors. And then we said, what part of you is not listed here? What part of your identity isn't on this list? And you can see that we actually got quite a few inputs. We wanted to show you that nothing has been left off, right? We have done some arranging and some grouping of different aspects of different sectors on the island. And so that's also one of the elements you'll see when you dig into the details of the standing rules. Okay, now we can go on to that next slide. That should be the last one of summary notes.
Here you go.
Okay, so, when we talked to people in our community, we tried to understand kind of how they identified themselves and how they would sort of fit into this process called the community council. You can kind of imagine that it gets pretty important, to be like really being able to speak for the island, to be able to understand who the island is. And when you bring issues to this entity called the council, who's benefited, who's impacted by it. We've talked about noxious weeds, we've talked about cutting down trees, so those represent issues that come up around different sectors and different groups. So the idea that a candidate who wants to be on the board, I think we thought it was very appropriate for them to tell us, and all of us as council members, which sector they would liaise with. In other words, it's imperative, I think, for us as council members that we have a diversity of representation on the board who's really connecting with our island. And that's what's behind that. Let's see. We have advisory committees as part of the structure. That was the equity committee was one of them, affordable housing, et cetera. Right now, the language says that the board can create those. The equity committee was actually created by a motion that came up from a council member. And so we would just want to expand the language that the council has the authority to also create advisory committees, not just the board. Let's see. We also wanted to ask people, how do you get information? Because this process of the community council, usually information shows up in the Beachcomber, there's an email list. We said, well, how do you get information? Does that work for you? And a lot of people told us, well, there'd be better ways to reach out to me. And so we've expanded the list of opportunities to reach out to our community. And that's what you're going to see in texting and other options there. Alternative communication formats came up. Dr. Norse is in particular an advocate for making sure that we can communicate with people with different abilities. And so we now have language that's been, you'll see that language added into the bylaws. Also, let's see, we heard from Joanne Hebert tonight, and we heard from another fellow who raised a motion here tonight. Not everybody understands like the jargon, the process, how it really works. So the idea that if somebody comes in with an issue, that one of the very first things that the board should do is to assign somebody to work with them so that they can be guided through this process. Some people are very ready to put themselves out despite all setbacks and make sure that something happens that they really care about, but that's not everybody. So we want to make sure that people who do have an issue are really supported and brought into the process in a way that they can have a guide, if you will, to help them navigate through this process of motions, committees, and things like that. And in fact, that's really is done. I know that the PSC Activity Advisory Committee, there was some meetings that I was in where there was a person from the board who really sat down with Jenny Bell and kind of walked through how it works. And that was super helpful for her. So I think it's part of the natural process, but I think it should also be included in the documents. And let's see, the last item is there's something called the Government Alliance on Race and Equity Toolkit. And Kathleen, I might embarrass you by saying Kathleen did the research on looking at this. It's basically a set of questions which kind of helps to, if you bring a motion forward, it's like a good set of guidelines to think about. Like, what are the impacts? What are the implications? Have I done my research? What kind of data or information can I use to measure the benefits of a motion, or maybe the other unintended consequences of a motion. And so we're proposing a other document which basically has that set of questions. This is used by governments. This is not a government entity. I think, Ben, you may want to make sure we're really clear about that. But it's a good toolkit for us to use. It's not only a toolkit for somebody to bring a motion forward, it's a toolkit for somebody sitting in this room to say, have you thought about that? Have you thought about this? Right, so it really kind of expands all of our awareness of the kind of things that this group makes decisions, who's affected, who's benefited, and who may suffer some consequences of certain decisions that if we don't hear from them. Okay, so that's really kind of the summary overview. And I think, Diane, another key, I can talk about process steps, or I don't know if you want to cover that part, like how we do voting and stuff like that.
Well, so this is the summary of the bylaws. Okay, and bylaws require a 2/3 vote of the members to make changes in the bylaws. And so these bylaws are being proposed now, and we have a month to think about them and look at them, and we'll vote on them at the November meeting. And the state of Washington for nonprofit laws, it's very important that they want the board of directors to approve any changes in bylaws before it goes to the members for a vote. So right now, these have been approved. These have all been approved by the board. If people want more changes in these, then they'll have to be, at this point, going down to another review of the bylaws. But thoughts and inputs and ideas would be very welcome about future changes to the bylaws. And yeah, so then we'll be voting on this at the November meeting on these bylaws.
Yes.
We'll also be voting on the standing rules, but they only require a majority vote, not a 2/3 vote. And they don't require, and they too will be required to have the board of directors approve any changes before they get brought to the members.
Right, perfect. So thank you for that. So what that means is that many people have probably seen a motion introduced and a friendly amendment made to the motion, and somebody says, who's brought the motion forward, that sounds good, I'll go ahead with that. Well, in this case, if somebody brings a friendly amendment forward, it says, okay, we're going to now go to the board, and they're going to decide, is that a good idea or not? And then the motion gets revised and gets read into another meeting. A month from then, you vote on those changes. So as the equity committee discussed, that we are considering saying that this is an integrated set of recommendations we would like to propose, and we're going to talk more about this, but our current thinking from the committee is that we're going to propose that we submit this motion to vote on the entire package. And if somebody has an idea like, hey, have you thought about this? And say, well, that's a thought that we should bring to the committee, who will make a recommendation to the board, who will come back to the council with another motion. And, maybe that motion would change some of the language of the changes that we're going to make now if we approve this. So anyway, that's kind of the process thinking that we've been through. This board has been in service for a couple years. There will be a whole brand new board in a couple of months. They're going to have their hands full, right, of figuring out how to do the job that this board has done. And so the thought is that we'd really like this board and this council who've been through this process of this discussion to make this decision. Do we accept this package of changes or not? And if we have revisions to it, then that's the kind of perfect input we've been looking for all along, right? How do we, from an equity perspective, make recommendations to the board? And so through this process of voting, we can get additional input on future changes that we would like to maybe put a recommendation forward. So I don't know if people have questions about that. The details of that haven't been all sorted out. Okay, so just be clear. But that's where the equity committee is suggesting we go in that direction right now.
Okay, so any questions or comments?
Yeah, hi, Sue Hapkowski.
This is only my second council meeting, so I'm pretty much a neophyte at this, but I just wanted some clarification. Are these new bylaws or are these established bylaws that are just having minor changes?
Yeah, what you will see is the existing documents, the bylaws and standing rules with some additions that are in red font with underlines and some changes to some language, which is in red font with a strike through. So yeah, it's the existing
So
documents.
this is established bylaws. Thank you. Yeah, these bylaws were established in 2022. And this is the first revision of the bylaws since then. And the bylaws, the revisions in the bylaws are not major. There's many more revisions being proposed in the standing rules. I'm going to stop sharing that.
Okay, so unless there's any other questions.
Well, there might
from
be
you?
some. I'm going to stop sharing so that I can see the people on
Right on Zoom.
on Zoom.
But we do have another question in the room as well, Diane. Why don't we go ahead in the room and then we can go to Zoom.
So the assigning a liaison, is that new or that's not new?
I think it's new.
Okay.
yeah.
Because I
Although
just,
in practice, that's really done, but it's not something that's called out in the bylaws. So the goal in my mind is to make it clear that that's a really good practice.
so I guess I have a comment. It was going to be a question, but it'll be a comment because the board has already approved these. So my comment is that these look like good ideas for the most part, but that it appears to me like it's a fair amount of additional work for the board. And that concerns me because it's hard to find board members who will commit to that, to the already, it's a pretty good workload. So I worry about that being a burden on a new burden on the board and something that they're obligated to because it's in the bylaws.
And I'm glad you made that comment because what we strive to do is identify things like these liaisons do not need to be board members. And so it will,
delegates.
yeah,
Okay, and all the communications and everything that go out, that was another piece of it, was the communication part, additional like flyers and.
That wasn't required. That's really important.
Okay.
It's not a requirement. It's an optional addition
Okay.
to communication for
Okay.
yeah, that's really important. I was watching that very carefully.
Well, I figured you would be. I figured if it had been approved by the board that I was missing something. Okay, thanks.
thanks for bringing that up.
Okay, and so online, Terry Sullivan has his hand up. Terry.
Yeah, I just had a thought that I don't think is prohibited by these bylaws or bylaws revisions or anything. But it just seems to me if new board members are to associate themselves with sectors, what would stop the board from recruiting actively from these sectors for board members?
Nothing.
It just seems to me that you might find a board person that, have more of a purpose and that they feel that, at least in part, that they're representing a particular group, which they're a part of. And of course, they couldn't be representing just that group and not the island as a whole, but it might be more of an incentive for a person to join the board.
And so Terry is a member of the committee, by the way. Thanks, Terry, for bringing that up. We've had conversations along the lines of, when outreach to the community about service through the council, that if this gets approved, there's a variety of ways that people can serve. And I personally hope that folks who have experience on the board with the council, if somebody brings a motion and needs some little guidance and coaching and support, that they'd say, yeah, I'm happy to step down as a board member and I can sure help somebody out who wants to, pick my brain maybe, a couple of times a month. I have no idea who's interested in that, but hopefully people will be inspired to bring people into this process and make that easy for them.
And the more people that come onto the board and experience and learn how it all works, there are more people there will be in the community to advise and guide other people into learning how this all works.
Absolutely.
Okay, Selena.
I have a completely separate question from before. The list of groups on the island that you've identified for having a liaison for, is that list set? Can it be added to?
Oh, well, we essentially in our recommendations to the board have identified additional sectors. We don't actually have a larger number. Maybe we added one like new sector, but we did a little sleight of hand because we did some combining of things that were like logical companions.
It also says in there others as come up, so it's open-ended for other sectors.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is because almost every meeting that I've been to, somebody has said we need to address the Airbnb ownership and how many Airbnbs there are on the island and how it's affecting affordable housing. And I think the number that was mentioned is that there are 1,600 Airbnbs on the island, which means that that is a big group of people on the island who are getting income and bringing tourists to the island who also support our businesses who are not represented. So
Yeah, housing
like
is
to-
one of the sectors.
no, I mean, Airbnb owners are not represented. I'd like to see them represented.
Well, that would be a suggestion for the future standing rules edition then. There's however, it could be covered under business because business is one of the sectors. And that's one of my sectors that I track. And I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce. And so it could be covered under that.
That's what I was looking at that. So anyway, I'd be interested in talking to you about that. Yeah.
Okay, and I say we're getting into the swing of what the Equity Committee did by outreaching to find out what are the issues that are important. Who are the people who are leaders in those areas that can provide good information to liaisons? You know, how do we then make sure that their voices are heard? So, yeah, it's got to be a network in my view, who we know and who can bring their information and awareness and perspective forward.
Okay, and it's time now to move on to the next part of the meeting. I'm not seeing any more hands up, so let's go. Next is the King County Comprehensive Plan discussion. So we're coming into the ending of the update of the King County Comprehensive Plan, and things are heating up. We have been, I'm going to pull something here. So at our September meeting, we passed a motion to ask King County to come back and talk to us about the issues that are in the comprehensive plan proposal that affect Vashon. And the very next day, Teresa Mosqueda, our elected representative on the King County Council, had set a date and was ready to go. And I attended that meeting. It was very good. And there was a lot of good information in it. And we have the recording for that meeting. And I'll just from memory, I'll just tell you some of the key things in there that I didn't know about that they're looking at, including. One is they are looking at regulating Airbnbs throughout King County. They're looking at, here's another idea for affordable housing. They're looking at if you have a house on a septic system, that they're looking into having a detached ADU that could be using just a compost toilet and a gray water system. So you don't have to build another septic system if you have a detached ADU. That would save a lot of money. And sometimes there's no space for yet another septic system. So it would encourage more affordable housing, small houses. So that's some of these things are very, very encouraging that they're working on in the comprehensive plan. And at the end of that meeting, she said, and she's coming back again to talk to Vashon about the things that are included in inclusionary housing in the comprehensive plan that impact Vashon. And that date has been set for November 12th from 12 to 1:30 p.m. And that was in the email that got sent out last night to everybody. You can set that date. So that will be a very interesting conversation too. And then the other thing is that came up in that meeting was that there's a special proposed regenerative demonstration project for Vashon Island, which would be, it's a housing project that's very deeply green, and it's going to be, it's planned to be on over 10 acres in Vashon town. And the man behind this concept is Morgan Brown, president and founder of Whole Water Systems. Morgan, are you with us? And would you like to share some information on the project?
Absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you share? Let me share.
Yes, let me do that.
Okay, terrific.
I'm going to make you co-host.
Oh, wow, that sounds important.
And
Okay.
I'm going to have you, there we go, so we can see you better.
Okay, let's see. I'm going to go straight to sharing. Everybody see this picture of Vashon town? Is that up there?
It's there, yes.
Okay. All right, well, let me start with this. 5 minutes, lot of stuff here we could potentially go over and discuss. So right off the bat, I will say that Terry's the chair of the Affordable Housing Committee. I am a past chair and a member, and this will be also a topic in the next Affordable Housing Committee meeting, which everyone is welcome to attend, unless Terry tells me I'm wrong on that, but that's what it always used to be. And so we'll have a little more time to discuss this there. I spent a bunch of time today putting an FAQ together from the developers' information that I have on it and what I can share. But first of all, let me just try real quick to buzz over really fast some of the stuff in just a few minutes. So, and I do have a timer here that might help me. So maybe let me start that, as I want to generally get off onto details way too much. So, okay. Anyway, the property we're looking at right here is just on the west side of Vashon town. That road you see in between the two of them, if you can see my arrow there, is 178th, and it terminates at 103rd. This is all within the town, and it's all zoned multifamily. There's very little multifamily zoning on Vashon, and this is some of the last undeveloped multifamily property. Now, my little origin story is I have a background in doing green development, green consulting for cities and counties, and also very water engineering for very green projects with the Living Building Challenge. I have a lot of permitting experience with that. And I'm a housing advocate. And as I mentioned, I've been on the
Morgan, you're breaking up. I'm sorry, Morgan.
Yep.
Your sound is breaking up. Could you turn off your video so we can hear you better?
Let me know that. Okay. Everybody still hear me? Everybody still see the picture?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. So any rate, longer story, a little bit shorter. I was actually walking out of Island Center Forest 8 years ago and came across a for sale sign on this 4-acre block right here that basically said it was for sale. I looked into it. I go, God, what a wonderful place for a walkable green community, sort of my background on it. And I looked into it. I saw that it was being sold because it was up for water shares and they didn't want to buy the water shares and they were selling it for 2 McMansions effectively. And being a housing advocate, I went, that's some of the last multifamily housing here. Let's see if I can find a green developer that wants to do it. I wound up having some friends and family, got excited about the project. And again, a longer story short, I became the developer and I said, great, we're doing full walkability, full green, full living building challenge, which is what I have experience with. Now, the other properties wind up coming to it because of the same water share issue. They were selling it by stripping off the water shares. They didn't want to buy them. And so This property asked me several times if I would buy it. After refusing a couple of times, they dropped the price further, cut off some of the property. We're going to sell it for just 1 or 2 units. And so we found some more money and did it. 1 year later, pretty much the same story for the next lot. So we actually own 9.5. And then about a year later, we wound up taking an option on this property for very little money because they were very interested in workforce rental housing. And this has a little bit of community business zoning on it where you could do some mixed use affordable housing. So that's sort of the story of how I became the green developer. Certainly not a well-funded one, but basically we have the idea, we know that there's a lot of housing need, and we have people we think in ways we think we can get this financed. So green building, I have a lot of experience with. I know it's difficult to permit. And so I spent a lot of time talking with the head honchos sort of at King County. In a conversation I was having with the executive, with Dow Constantine, saying we're going to try something really difficult with green and living building challenge, he said, oh, we want you to do the demonstration project ordinance. So I spent a bunch of time researching what that was. I didn't think we needed to do anything special because we're just proposing doing what we're already zoned for. But in conversations with the executive and with our council member, who was Jim McDermott at the time, the head of local services and the head of permitting, they suggested again that we do a demonstration project ordinance. Now, what that is, I can go to an explanation of it real quick here, but you should all get this FAQ, but I will read real quick what it is because there's been a lot of confusion about it. And I'll just read what they put in the demonstration ordinance. Said the purpose of the regenerative development demonstration project is to determine whether innovative permitting processing, site development, and building construction techniques can facilitate development that goes beyond sustainability and results in significant community and environmental benefits, including net positive energy and water use, improved ecological performance, health and wellness through walkability, social interaction, and elimination of toxic materials, as well as diverse, equitable, and affordable housing. The demonstration project will provide information on the application of these techniques to a project with a mix of residential and commercial uses on Vashon Rural Town. And it'll provide basically guidance on how they can potentially change regulations for zoning, subdivision, roads, and stormwater in the future. So that's the purpose of it. I finally agreed to it, and we started going through that process with Jim McDermott, our council member, and then the pandemic hit, and we wound up putting it all on a pandemic pause. It started up again about a year ago, and working with Teresa Mosqueda and her staff, they suggested putting it into the comp plan, and I didn't know that was actually going to happen until Teresa's presentation on October 8th, and I've been kind of scrambling ever since. I hope to have a website with more info on this, but right now, this frequently asked questions is the best thing I've got. So let me jump to a couple of other questions on it. Does the demonstration project allow the project increase the number of housing units that we could do? The answer is no. There's nothing in there for that. It really just addresses if the project commits to these very difficult green standards and housing standards, then they allow you to ask if there's rules that can change to make that possible. It's not a question of being able to do different kinds of building or to be able to do more housing units. Does it allow the project developer to do anything specifically that isn't currently allowed with the property's current zoning? The answer is no. Again, it's just for trying to find ways to make it easier to permit and adapt the regulations for these difficult green things. So what's the benefit to the project developer of doing it? In return for committing, well, once I participate in this, we have to actually do those expensive and risky green things, which are very significant. It's the most rigorous green building program in the world. We are allowed to ask to change regulations if they're getting in the way of those features. That's basically it. And I guess the only other thing is that they asked if there was anything we could do to commit to affordable housing. We're not required to do any affordable housing on this, but it is a regenerative development goal. And I have goals for what I want to do voluntarily with affordable housing. And so I volunteered the numbers that we put in, which go beyond normally what market rate projects will do. And these are the percentages that I put in for voluntarily doing. And I actually hope that we would be able to exceed these a bit. The goal is a mixed-use development of a variety of different types of housing and rental apartments and also for sale apartments, but basically said that 10% of the for sale residential units would be put into a community land trust at 80% AMI, and that 15% or more of the rental units would be put in would be affordable at 80% of AMI. But since I actually intend all of the rental apartments to be targeting workforce housing, I felt fairly confident in saying we'd put 70% or more of the rental units at affordable housing in between the normal AMIs for workforce housing.
Morgan, your 5 minutes
Okay,
are well up.
that's great. There's a whole bunch of other stuff in the facts, and there will be the Affordable Housing Committee thing and maybe a quick question or two to answer here.
Yes, now it's open for questions. We have some time for questions. And I was wondering if we can see there we go. Okay, thanks. Yes, give her a microphone. Susan Carper has a question.
Do you have any examples of where this has been done before that we could view so we could see what it would look like?
Excellent question. I have a bunch. I research it constantly. To a certain extent, the answer is there isn't. This is really intending to be a leading edge project. It's one of the first to do it to this degree. I participated in it on smaller projects and actually sort of won some of the first permitting things that have ever been done with this, having to do with water, nationally, internationally, in Oregon and stuff like that. But no, there's a few that are going a bit in this direction, but I'm not aware of anything of this size that has done the Living Building Challenge to this degree. I mean, it'd take a long time to go into the details, but real quick on what it is, you got to be net zero energy. You have to be net positive energy, produce more energy than you use. You have to be net positive on the water. In other words, you're a positive influence, both quality and quantity on the aquifer and the streams. You have to treat and reuse all of your own water. Those are difficult, challenging things. And then a lot of walkability, diverse housing, that sort of thing.
Terry Sullivan has a question next.
Terry.
Yeah, Morgan, I'm glad that you announced that you're going to be at the Affordable Housing Committee and you are on the agenda to discuss that. And I was going to bring up some questions about the amount of affordable housing and how much it's prioritizing the needs for Vashon housing. But I think we'll just leave that for the Affordable Housing Committee. And for those of you that are at this meeting that would like to attend that meeting for the larger discussion of this issue, I will put my email in the chat, and you can take that out and email me, and I will send you an invitation to the meeting. It's a Zoom meeting.
And if anyone here would like to attend the Affordable Housing Committee meeting, you can just send an email on our website to info@vmcc.org, and we'll make sure you get the information on it.
And Diane, is this FAQs going to be put up somewhere?
We'll take a look at it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it will take, you and I'll take a look at it and talk about it and see where it's going to be put up. Once we agree on it, it'll be put up on the website.
Oh, okay. Well,
Council.
I'm already distributing it. So anybody who wants it,
you go ahead.
contact me. Yeah.
George, your hand is up next.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. Thank you, Morgan. And I was just curious, how many units are you talking and how many stories high?
Don't know exactly yet. I should have, I ran out of time on going to what it's actually zoned for. I will pull it up right here. If you put it all together, it's got a base units allowed of 95 and a maximum, that 95 on the residential property. And it's got a base unit of 100 apartments, mixed use apartments that would be allowed. So both of those. And the maximum would be 143 units on the residential property and 200 apartments. Now, that would be really big and certainly wouldn't do it in one phase. And I'm looking at something like the first phase being on the north property where maybe 20 townhomes and I would like to do the rental apartments, the workforce rental apartments in the first phase. And right now, estimates are that that would probably be with the anticipated 3-story that the new
Oh, you're gonna
comp
have to turn
plan.
your video. Can't hear you.
Can't hear me
Please
again.
turn your
Okay.
video off. I'm sorry.
Arg. Okay, that the apartments would be mixed use, bunch of community service stuff basically on the ground floor, and then residential apartments on 2 stories above that. And the reason it could be 3 stories is because the comp plan is planning on changing that here in this latest version. On the residential property, it would just be the existing zoning. It would be a mix of whatever we think actually would probably be a mix of 1.5 story, 2.5 story, and maybe 3.5 stories. That's all what's zoned possible in that in the residential zoning for R8.
Okay. Wow, that was a lot there. Sorry, we missed some of that. But it'll probably be in your FAQs.
Yep.
Art has his hand up. Well, anyone you here? We need to go back and forth. Anyone here at the Land Trust first before we go to Art?
Sue Hapkowski. So this might be a silly question, but so the properties allotted water shares, there are so many allotted water shares per parcel of property. Are these going to support 100 to 200 rental units?
Boy, isn't that the best question in the room? We will have to see. Again, that's my background. Doing have a green water engineering company that's done living building challenge projects on a lot smaller scale than this, where a living building challenge requirement actually says that you do not take water from the utility. You have to either with rainwater harvest or with wells and water reuse and putting more water back in the aquifer. That I know may sound impossible, but it can be done. You have to do it all yourself. But we also did acquire as insurance as many water shares as we could do, and we have a lot of water shares. So I'm quite confident that in between the different mixtures we can do, we'll be able to do what we need to do with the water. But if we can't, they won't let us build them. Yeah.
That's right. Art, you have your hand up. Please ask your question.
Yes, hi. Well, I've got several questions, but I'm just going to limit it to one here because we'll talk about the rest during the Affordable Housing Committee meeting. But my question is automobiles, parking, and the fact that if you have, 100 to 200 units, you have to figure that parking is going to be somewhere close to 2 cars per unit. And that's a lot of traffic to put on those 2 little side streets exiting out onto the highway and Bank Road. And I don't know that the infrastructure is there to support that. That's kind of a concern of mine.
Excellent concern. Yep. I have been involved in walkability and walkable design and parking reform for decades, and a key element of this project will be doing the best we can to take the best knowledge out there on how to make it so that people aren't getting in their cars to drive. But we do understand that given today's requirements, we will need to be providing parking for that. But I do think one thing to keep in mind is if somebody is living right here and can do a lot of what they need in town, they're not driving into town to park. But we will be designing stuff that will be able to accommodate the parking that we need right now, but also designing for homes that will last 200 years and putting a lot of things together for the transportation to the pedestrian ferries and to the other things on the island where they don't need to get in the car, where we have shared vehicles and things like that. A lot of thought and energy will be going into trying to get that right and to plan for the future.
Well, underground parking would certainly come into play, I would think. Right. We don't have, you don't have as a developer control as to what happens over with the public transit and that sort of thing. So yeah, we have to just keep that in mind.
No,
So we'll
totally.
talk more during the housing
Yeah,
meeting.
yeah, totally. It's a big issue. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Art. Terry, you have your hand up again. Is there anyone who hasn't asked a question at the Land Trust building who'd like to ask before we have Terry come back? Okay, Terry.
Yeah, I was just going to add to the discussion that Art had there, and it's not just the parking area that has to be provided for, but it's the amount of traffic that the road is going to have to take, that 178th is going to have to handle. For instance, at rush hour in the morning and evening, whatever, because we have the 29 houses at Rose Bell, and then another 112, of course, they wouldn't all be trying to go out at exactly the same time, but that road is not very large, and could be a problem.
Yep, absolutely. Again, well aware of it, but it's a key element of doing walkable design and parking design and parking reform and connecting it all together with mobility and the transportation. And I really anticipate our having solutions for that and being on the leading edge of it.
Okay. Looking forward
Not
to
a
the
short
discussion.
conversation, though.
All right, we have time if there's any other comments or questions from anybody. Otherwise, we'll move on. I'm not seeing any hands up online and no hands up here. So thank you very much, Morgan. That's really wonderful that you were able to pull that together so quickly. I understand the background now, why you didn't have this information before, and why it was a bit of a surprise on the 8th of October for you.
Yeah, it was a bit, but we're making lemonade. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Wonderful. Okay, so next we have the community updates, and Kevin Jones has something for us for community updates.
Talk about the other council. The King County, we've heard about noxious weeds, which is a climate issue. We've heard about a super green walkable development with minimal car transportation, which is a climate issue. So it turns out that King County is updating their climate action plan. And they have an opportunity tonight, actually. They had one of their 2 virtual public meetings. The next one is Tuesday next week. And they also have a survey that you can basically share your thoughts about what King County should do about climate issues. And so all 3 of those things, and maybe even more here, are really appropriate if you want to amplify some of this work that you've heard about. So what I like to do, James, I believe, is on Zoom, and he's going to post some stuff in the chat so people on Zoom have a chance to figure out how to connect with that virtual meeting on Tuesday, October 22nd from 6:30 to 8 on Zoom. But in the room, there's a copy of this poster back on the table, and I'm going to walk around and hand out this little piece of paper that says, here's a link to go right to the website for you to either submit your survey inputs or to sign up for that meeting on Tuesday. I'll be there. Steve Bergman, who you heard from, is going to be there. Rob Briggs, I believe, is planning to be there. So you'll see some familiar faces in the crowd. Hope you can make it, and happy to answer any questions that people might have about that. Okay, thank you.
We have some time if anyone else has some community updates they would like to offer.
I'm Selena Yarkin, and I just wanted to plug again that I'm doing a monthly poll, and you'll see posters around town, and I have a website, thevashonpoll.com. This month, I'm polling on what you think of the phones away for the day policy at McMurray. I'd love for you to take it. It's super quick. It's anonymous. You can go to there's a link on the website, thevashonpoll.com. Unfortunately, I forgot to bring a flyer with the QR code, but last month was last month was the Vashon Health District. The month before that was the ferries. So I think of topics that are relevant, pertinent to Vashon Island, and then the results are up on the website. So anybody who wants to, if there's a topic that you're working on, and I've polled on it. You can go and see what islanders are thinking about it, and hopefully that will be useful.
Thank you, Celine.
Is there a website, or I didn't understand if you have a website where we can see the
Yes.
poll results?
Yes, I have the website. It's the Vashon-Poll.com, the Vashon-Poll.com. And I put it up on Facebook each month, and I put it on posters around town with a QR code.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any folks on Zoom that would like to offer some community updates, things that you know about that are going on, or questions you have? If not, I am going to make an appeal for, I would like to know, now this community council has been happening and meeting on and off since 1933. This isn't something new that we just came up with. And because of COVID and things that have happened in our society, people are not volunteering like they used to. Some people think that because of COVID, people have closed in and said, I have just got to take care of myself. I've got to take care of my family. And all across this country, people are no longer volunteering for things that they used to do. And we're absolutely seeing it with the community council. We have 4 people to try to make this happen now. And I'm very concerned. And I'm sure the 4 people who are all very concerned, how are they going to pull this off? Just a handful of people. So if you think it needs to be improved and you have some ideas on how you can improve it, it's open. If you want to make this a better purpose, a better forum for this community to get together and share ideas in real time with each other and talking about these issues in a way that we can be heard and connected. I personally think it's a very valuable forum for the island, and I always have. And I think it's even more important now. Here's something. If this organization is here so that when something comes up, it can be brought here. When something comes up, like we just found out about Morgan Brown's development, who knew that this was happening? Nobody knew. The Beachcomber didn't know. But we found out about it because of our work trying to connect and trying to understand the comprehensive plan that affects all of us. Without the community council, we wouldn't have had a clue about this. And other things as well. Things come up fast. And if the organization is here, it'll be brought to the agenda and brought to our attention, and we can talk about these things. We might not be able to do anything about it, but at least we're going to know what's happening on our island and what's going on. So I just wanted to make a plug for the community council and hope that people will step up and join the board and keep it going so that we do have this forum every month, ideally, to talk about these issues, bring them up, and see what we can do to help either solve things on our own or get the help of King County or whoever we can get help from to keep our community together and strong. So, thanks.
Right. So the equity committee talked to a lot of folks, and we tried to, find a real range of individuals. There's a couple of people said really strongly that we need to maintain our voice. We're not allowed, apparently, to create ourselves as a city, to incorporate. It's not allowed. So, how do we be influential? I've attended now 2 workshops with King County Strategic Climate Action Plan, right? And I'm there talking about things that affect the island. And I say, I know that we're like 11,000 people out of how many in King County? I know that we're not the big population center. But so how do we break through, right? How do we convey things that for us are really crucial, but for the majority of people in King County is an afterthought?
Yeah, the folks in King County do say that Vashon punches above its weight. The community council is one of the reasons we can do that. That we have an outsized influence because our we are in general community is very important to us, and we stand up and we want to be counted when things happen here. And the community council makes it way easier to be heard than if we had to try to do this as individuals. Okay, our next meeting is going to be in November, and we're going to have a vote on the bylaws and the standing rules. And we will be announcing the new board members at our November meeting, and it's our annual meeting. So we'll be voting on the budget for the next coming year and doing a review of this last year and what's happened and where we're at as an organization. So we're going to be going early for that, which hasn't happened in a very long time. So meeting is adjourned. See you next month.
You know, what is the website again? Is that vashonbull.com?
You've been doing this for a while.